Lesson 1.6, solving quadratics by quadratic formula, again with complex solutions. I just want to show you this number one right here. If I graph it on Desmos, here's my x-axis. See how it's above that? So it doesn't look like it has any real solutions. That's going to be a key factor that you can't factor this like a basic trinomial. There's going to be nothing that multiplies to make 89 and adds to make 16. So the quadratic formula is going to come into play. Hopefully you remember this, and hopefully you remember this song. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, we'll probably listen to it. Okay, so we're going to start with number one. Remember that all quadratics go ax squared plus bx plus c. So our a value is always the coefficient in front of x squared. So in this problem, a is going to be 1. B is the number in front of x, so that's going to be 16. And c is the constant on the end. Not necessarily on the end, but c is our constant, 89. So we'll start x is equal to negative of b, which is 16, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So that'll be 16 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 89 all over 2 times a is 1. All right, I would like to go ahead and get this all down to one number. So I'll do 16 squared minus 4 times 1 times 89. Okay, so I get square root of negative 100. Getting a negative under the square root tells me right there that this is going to get a complex or imaginary solution. And then 2 times 1, of course, is 2. So what I'm going to do from here is, since that is a perfect square, I'll have negative 16 plus or minus square root of 100 is 10. So this would be 10i over 2. Then we need to separate this into two fractions. So I have negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. 10i divided by 2 would be 5i. And those are our solutions. Okay, number 2, I'm going to let you set up as a quadratic formula, and then I'll help you at the very end. I will point out that our b was a negative value this time, so make sure when you plug it in and it goes negative b, it's the opposite of negative 42, or negative times negative 42, which becomes positive. And here you have to have parentheses around a negative value before you square it. Otherwise, your calculator will tell you it's negative. But we know squaring a negative always results in a positive. So this value became negative 36, square root of negative 36 is plus or minus 6i. And then 42 does not divide by 18 evenly. So you can figure out a common factor, or remember you can do it on your calculator, where you take 42 divided by 18, math, fraction, enter, you get 7/3, plus or minus, and then 6/18 I know is 1/3. So I could write it like this, with an I afterwards, or I could write it like this. Just have I in the numerator. They're both the same. And delta math will take them the same way. All right, number 3, I need to point out that before we can do quadratic formula or any kind of factoring, we have to have quadratics set equal to 0. So I would need to move this term in here by adding 42x. So I'd get 9x squared plus 42x plus 52 is equal to 0. And then I'll let you set up quadratic formula again. You should get down to negative 42 plus or minus the square root of negative 108 all over 18. This is not a perfect square, so I have to simplify the radical by thinking, what perfect square is in 108? They're on my back wall. I'm hoping you can find it. Remember, it has to be the biggest one possible. I know it's 36, and I'm going to make that the negative. That is 36 and 3 makes 108. All right, so when I simplify, I'll have negative 42 plus or minus square root of negative 36 is plus or minus 6i with the square root of 3 left over 18. And we've already had those exact same numbers in number 2. So when I simplify this, I'll have a negative 7/3 plus or minus, this is going to look weird, but this is, you could put I square root of 3 over 3, or this part you could have square root of 3 over 3i. It doesn't matter how you write it, but that's your answer.